This video is over solving quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. If you have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, and you can't factor it, you can't use the special square root method, you can actually use the quadratic formula, which is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That's sung by the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel, to remember. So the first example I'm going to show you, it can be factored, but I want to show you that the quadratic formula is kind of a catch-all. You can do it to whatever problem you have. It's mostly the most general thing you can do. So 2x squared minus 3x minus 5 equals 0. So a equals 2, b equals negative 3, and c equals negative 5. So x equals negative b, which b is negative 3. If your number that you're putting into the formula is negative, place parentheses around it. It will make your life a lot easier. B squared, which is negative 3 squared, minus 4 times a times c, all over 2a. X equals, that's going to be positive 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 plus, that's 8 times 5, and this will be plus 40 all over 4. X equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 49 over 4, which would be 3 plus or minus 7 over 4. So you have 3 plus 7, which is 10 over 4, and 3 minus 7, which is negative 4 over 4. So to simplify those, you'll have a 5 seconds, or 5 over 2, and a negative 1. Okay, that's a lot of work for something that can be factored. And I will talk about how to determine whether to go ahead and use the quadratic formula or if you can do the factoring. And it's up to you. You can always do the quadratic formula if you need to. Sometimes factoring is quicker. So let's see here. 4x squared plus 6x plus 1. Let's do the quadratic formula one more time on this. And then I will show you what I do generally, as if I have a test in front of me or if I'm just doing these on my own without having anybody tell me what to do. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. And you must memorize this formula. It will make your life a lot easier. Negative 6 plus or minus 36 minus 16 all over 8. Negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 20 over 8. Negative 6 plus or minus the not square root, let's go 4 and 5. So that would be 2 square root 5 over 8. Okay. All I did was simplify radicals. If you're unsure how to do this, please go back and refine that skill. We have a 6, 2, and 8. All of these values can be divided by 2, and you must divide every single term by the same number. So we have negative 3 plus or minus square root 5 over 4, and we are done. Okay, so make sure if all three numbers can be reduced, do so. This also takes an effect of splitting up your fractions and saying, well, that's negative 3/4 plus or minus 1/4 over square root 5 over 4. Your denominators are the same, but you can go ahead and place the numerator all under a denominator. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on these generally. I'll show you what I do, and it actually saves some time in the long run, especially if you have to use the dreaded formula. Okay, so the first thing I do is if it's prime. Do the primability test. So the primability test is negative b squared minus 4ac, and I don't even need the square root. But if this is a perfect square, that means this can factor. If this is not a perfect square, it cannot factor, but you don't have to throw away your work. You can actually use it to your advantage. And I'll show you some examples of why and how. So negative 1 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 6. 1 plus, that would be 48, which would be 49. Well, the square root of 49 is 7, so this can factor. So let's go ahead and find, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Find factors of negative 12 that add to negative 1. So we'll have 2x minus 4x plus 3x minus 6. Oh, 2x squared, sorry. 2x is a perfect, or is a greatest common factor, I'm sorry, which would give us 1x minus 2 plus 3x minus 2 equals 0. So we'll have x minus 2 times 2x plus 3. So x equals 2 and negative 3 halves. If you take this and set it up to 0 and solve it, you'll get negative 3 halves. Okay, now if we have something that does not factor, 2x squared minus x minus 2 equals 0. Okay, so you're sitting here, you're doing the factoring method, you can't figure out factoring method. This last one, you were trying to figure out how to factor it, it just did not come to you. So we're going to do the primability test. So b squared minus 4ac. So negative b minus 4 times 2 times negative 2. That would be positive 16. Oh, that would be a 1. Sorry, positive 1. So we get a 17. Okay, so figure that out. This would be 17. Well, 17 is not a perfect square. So that means we have to use the quadratic formula. However, half of it has already been done for you. So this is b squared minus 4ac off to the side. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac. We figured that to be 17 all over 2a. So we have 1 plus or minus square root of 17 over 4, and you're done. So this is how this can play a big advantage, or you can use it to your advantage, especially if something cannot factor or you're checking the factorability. You can just plug it right into your formula and be done. Let's try another one. Okay, so I'm going to add the 5 over, and you must set this up so that everything is equal to 0, or all of your terms are on one side. The primability test, I don't know, I like to factor, but I don't want to spend hours trying to figure out the combination. That's 20, 160. Let's see here. right now my math in my head, my calculator in my head is broken. Let's see here, that'd be negative 124. Okay, well, we can't factor this, so do not erase this work. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root. Hey, we have that. It's right here. So plug in negative 124, or if you want to, you can go ahead and go 6 squared minus 4 times a times b, and you'll find out you'll still get the same answer, 2a. Negative 6 plus or minus, we need to simplify this. So of course an I is going to come out, and 2, so that would be a 64. Square root of 64 is 8. Square root 2. And then, I did that right? Oh no, I didn't. I'm sorry. Let me do that right. That's 62. I thought something looked weird. And then 31. There we go. So we have negative 6 plus or minus 2 square root. Oh, not 2 square root yet, because this is negative. 2i square root 31 over 16. Now each of these, the 2, the 6, and the 16, you can cancel those out by 2. So we have negative 3 plus or minus I square root 31 all over 8. So we can reduce that, and that is our answer. Forgive me for my mistake, but that is our answer to this problem. So how to determine which method to use? Well, you can always check for factoring by using the b squared minus 4ac, see if that is a perfect square. And then you can, if it is, go ahead and factor. If it's not, then go ahead and use your quadratic formula. If one side can be isolated into something squared, so you have something squared equaling a value, you can square root both sides and then go on from there. If all else fails, if you can't think of what method you want to use, you can always use the quadratic formula to find your answer, whether you could factor or not. So this concludes this video.